Okay. Oh. Virtual background. Oo. I-install ko lang. I-ano ko siya. I-instruct ko. I-instruct ko. Okay, okay. Ito rin yung kuwas. Hindi mo akong makontak si sir.
Huwag lang. Naghahanap na sila. Hindi ko matawagan. Ako live yung mat. The light. Ayaw niya man lang. It's the light. Okay. Kaya ako training. Kung sabi mo kaya yung bago.
Ito, tinatawag ko Sir Sando.
Hindi naman makontak eh. Cannot be reached.
Sir, we cannot reach you, Dr. Maslow. We're trying to call you, but we cannot reach you.
Yes, Sans and Ira, just let me know if it's time for me to start.
Okay po, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, we can start.
I can start? Not yet.
You can start, ma'am. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So, good afternoon, all the attendees and of course the speakers, and welcome to the parallel session titled Media Information Literacy, Think Critically, Click Wisely. I am your moderator. I'm Dr. Maria Guaneta Pusta, a Board of Trustee of the Philippine Association of Communication Educators and a faculty member of the University of Santo Tomas. MIL addresses the multifaceted, the plural, the diverse, and the emergent landscapes of the intersections between communication and information literacies in, of course, multimedia platforms. This afternoon, we will be witnessing researches that relate to information literacies across domains and identities, and the exploration of audiences and curated content through the mediated through social media. So we are advocated to think critically and to click wisely. A gentle reminder to all, kindly mute your microphone while the presentations are ongoing and keep the camera off too so as not to distract the presenters. Presenters are given strictly 10 minutes to do so, and we will entertain your questions after every two presentations have finished. You may either type them on the chat box or raise your hand and wait to be acknowledged. Once acknowledged, may we... Oh, sorry, why is my slide towards the end? Let me just adjust. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Once acknowledged, state your name briefly, your institution, and your country of representation. So, allow me to introduce, for the benefit of our attendees, okay, our first presenter will be Dr. Hemedy S. Mora of the Philippine Association for Media and Information Literacy. Of course, she is the chair of the Department of Communications for Polytechnic University, and her research topic was on syllabus development for media and gender elective. Right after Dr. Mad's presentation, we will be listening to Lim Ji Yi of the School of Arts in University Sans Malaysia on her topic, Senior Citizens Readiness to Adopt Penang Smart Parking Application. Next presenter will be Maria Teresa Suzette P. Balcos from the De La Salle Santiago Zobel School, and her topic is on effectiveness of a reflective module towards students' responsible use of social media. Very timely, no? Because media information literacy in Philippine setting is taught at the senior high level across all strands. We also have Guillaume presenting. He's from the De La Salle University, Manila, presenting the senior high school department on his topic, Philippine Cinema, Factors that Affect the Role of Independent Filipino Film Producers in the Age of Streaming. Interestingly, we will listen to Trang Kim of the Golden Communications Group as she will present her research incorporating media literacy in science communications to improve scientific literacy in the age of information disorder. This is pretty much in the trend right now. Next, we have Sonia of the Chagrin Lake City University in Bhopal, and her topic is the comparative study on the usage of Facebook and Twitter, with special reference to the communication of child welfare policies of the Chhattisgarh government. Of course, we are also privileged to listen to Ruela R. Parucho of the University of Mindanao, that's in the Philippines, and her research was on rediscovering the literary forms of Surigao, a collection of legends, riddles, sayings, songs, and poetry. Then we have Sorhalia Latif Yusof from the Mindanao State University. She will be presenting her research on rediscovering the literary forms of Surigao, a collection of legends, riddles, sayings, and poetry. Then, we are also privileged to be listening to Dr. Jose Ruben Alagan II. Of course, Dr. Joey is with PAMEL and with the Padyon Group, and he was a former trustee too of PACE, and his research is on integrating media and information literacy and proposed ASEAN Communication Competency Framework. And lastly, but not the least, we will be listening to a research about policy communication for ethnic minorities in Vietnam, an interdisciplinary and a multidisciplinary approach from V. Thi Piong of the Thai Nguyen University. Did I miss out on anyone? Okay. Alright. If Dr. Mads is here, she may start sharing her screen. If Dr. Moira is not yet in the room, Dr. Moira is not yet in the room, is it okay that we begin with Jing Yi Lim's presentation first? Or just go back?
Fine with that, Dr. Queen. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Right. Okay. I hope you'll be able to see my slides. All right. Very good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeannie. Apa khabar from Malaysia. All right. So today my presentation topic will be on the senior citizens' readiness to adopt smart parking applications. So basically, as we can see, is that the technology is now emerged in a very rapid kind of like evolutions where with an aim to actually create the conditions for lifestyle improvement for the people. So we can see that the use of technology is now quite broadly being used by a lot of people in our society. Apart from that, the situation in Malaysia, the government is also putting in a lot of efforts. It's just like the other countries around the world, trying to include the use of digital technology among the society. So one of the important or remarkable efforts that has been done by the Malaysian government is through the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint. The government is taking actually one initiative to transform the country into a digital-driven, high-income society where the economic as well as the social activities will actually involve the productions as well as the use of digital technology, not only by involving the governments and businesses, but also the individuals in the society. So along with that, the Central Bank of Malaysia, which we call it as Bank Negara Malaysia, is also kind of like putting in their responsibility in accelerating the migrations to the digital transactions so that the Malaysia will be moving towards a cashless society. So with that, one of the states in Malaysia, which is named Penang, has actually come out with the smart parking applications, which I am actually doing a research on. So basically, around the world, due to the development of this Internet of Things, we started to have this kind of like smart parking applications has been invented around the world, and we try to use it as much as we can. Alongside, this is also due to the decreased mobile price. The mobile phone price is dropping, it's affordable by a lot of people, as well as the problem that we are having because of the growing populations and then the congestion of the traffic around the world. So a lot of countries are actually using this technology. So this is the Penang Smart Parking applications that has been came out by the Penang state government, started in year 2018. So basically this is the first smart parking applications that we have in the country. And this is actually one of the 72 smart initiative projects that has been developed by the state government in the effort of making the Penang a smart international city by the year of 2030. So as you can see here from the pictures that I've shown here, there are a lot of functions that can be done through these applications. So basically, through these applications, the users are allowed to find parking, to find pay their compound, to register their vehicles for the parking. They are able to purchase the money passes and so on. However, when it comes to the senior citizens, the previous research has shown that a lot of senior citizens are actually facing a lot of challenges when they're using the technology. And due to that, a lot of researchers has also come out with all these seminars, workshops, and so on in order to help the senior citizens to cope with the development of the technology. So, and they found out that the social connectedness is actually one of the most important factors that will affect the digital technology acceptance among the senior citizens. So for the senior citizens, most of them, they are using the technology to get connected with their friends, with their family members, to take photos, to show to their family members. All right. So the other things is quite interestingly that, you know, when a lot of research actually found out that senior citizens are facing challenges, but still we can see that they actually show the kind of like strong desire to learn the digital skills. And the problem statements that we found out that is, while the Penang state and also the Malaysian government started to say that, you know, we wanted to follow the steps of the technology. We wanted to be also, the pioneer of around the world to use this kind of like smart parking applications. Interestingly, the local media discovered that some of the senior citizens revealed that they are actually not happy with this cashless parking payment, which is the PSP applications. So while the government is trying to demolish the traditional styles of sketch and pay coupon parking, we found out that there's a distinct gap where information that focus on senior citizens' readiness to adopt the smart parking applications is still unclear. And most of the research that has been conducted in the country are mostly explore on how can we actually engage the senior citizens with the use of digital technologies and tools, as well as how the quality of the life among senior citizens can be improved. So that is the reason why we came up with this research and the project design actually looking at the readiness of senior citizens in Penang specifically to adopt to this Penang smart parking applications, as well as understanding the motivators and the inhibitors that the senior citizens actually confronted. So by the use of questionnaire survey, we have get a target respondents of 120 senior citizens in the states from different backgrounds, different ethnics, and randomly selected at several parking hotspots area in Penang. So the framework that we have used for this research is the technology readiness in-depth frameworks, where we actually look at the drivers and also the inhibitors that affect the kind of like adoptions among the senior citizens. So this is the demographics of the respondents. So we are covering 35% of male and 65% of female. This is also due to the percentage of the female gender is actually higher in the state. All right. And apart from that, we are covering those senior citizens from the age of 56 to 76 and above, as long as they are still vehicle users that will park their car at the public area where they need to pay to the city council. So this is the findings that we have found. So under the optimism, you can see that a lot of this disagreement come from the senior citizens, especially when it says that they are able to pay the parking compound easily, even though the applications allow them to do so. But they feel that it is not easy for them to actually do it. So they don't really enjoy the flexibility of extending the parking durations at anywhere, because through the applications, they are actually able to do so, but still they are not happy with it. Also, even though Penang is a small state, but we have 2 city councils. So 2 city councils are in charge of different areas. So the applications is actually interchangeable, meaning that you are able to choose which city councils are you actually paying to, depends on where you are parking your vehicle. However, still, it seems like the senior citizens already stated that they disagreed with this optimism elements here. And apart from that, something that positive is that they feel that these smart parking applications actually reduces the hassle of finding the printed parking coupons that I have mentioned earlier, that which the government is thinking of to fully demolish that. And following with that, under the part of innovativeness, we can see that it's quite surprisingly that the senior citizens are kind of like innovative and ready to accept these smart parking applications, because we feel that even though majority of their friends are not using it, but still they agree that I should be the lead to start using these applications. And apart from that, they are also doing it because they feel that the environmental friendly applications should be fully utilized in our life. And apart from that, we can also see that it's quite positive outcome where the senior citizens feel that they should actually learn different kind of like reload methods, because the applications actually allow them to do not only online banking, where they also can go to the convenience shops like 7-Elevens to top up their applications. So meanwhile, when it comes to the inhibitors, under the discomfort elements, we can see that senior citizen shows that they are not really happy with it because they feel that they don't actually receive sufficient guidance. They're having difficulties in also reading the fonts that is being designed in the smart parking applications. They are also facing some problem in topping up their smart parking applications due to some of them do not have online banking. And also this is a very common problem with senior citizens because they feel that it is quite difficult for them to keep on remember from time to time what is their login pin when they would like to make use of the applications. And apart from that, there is also a problem when it comes to the language used in the smart parking applications. So ladies and gentlemen, this I have to explain a bit to you because as most of you know that Malaysians are actually formed up with people from different ethnicities where they have their own mother tongue language. So we are using Bahasa, we are using English, and we are using Mandarin as well. And this is the problem that is faced by the senior citizens in Penang. So apart from that, when it comes to insecurity, we can also see that senior citizens are actually having some problems here because they also have that kind of like, they don't feel secure because they feel that they might forget to charge the battery. So of the mobile phone. So probably the time when they wanted to use that, you know, the mobile phone is no longer working. And apart from that, we can also see that they don't feel comfortable because they feel that they might come to a situations where they will lose their cash in the time that they are doing the top up for the applications.
Jing, can you wrap up, please?
Sure. So basically, the key findings here shows that senior citizens perceive innovativeness, that significant drivers while both discomfort and insecurity significantly inhibit them to inhibit the adoptions. So however, they do not actually show full refusions. So when the government is actually trying to promote this, we feel that it's also important for the government to ensure the readiness of users to use these applications by providing helps to the senior citizens. So in the future, we feel that there's a need for further discussion on how senior citizens' readiness in adoption can be actually improved so that they could be also beneficial out of the new technology. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Apologies, but we're on a time limit. So we're going back. The next presenter will be Dr. Hemedy Mora, and her topic is in syllabus development for media and gender elective. Mads, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Professor Pusta. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you? Okay, so I will be sharing my screen. Okay, here it is. So, okay, I hope everything's clear to you. So basically, we conducted this study last year, and the complete title is The Perception of Practitioners on Gender and Development in Mass Media towards the Development of an Outcomes-Based Syllabus for the Core Subject Media and Gender. Okay, so my co-author here is Dr. Rudolph Anthony Lacerna. Okay, by the way, during the time that we conducted this study, I was still the department chair of the Department of Journalism of my university, PUP, and Dr. Lacerna was actually the acting chair of the Communication Research Department. He's also a faculty of the Broadcast Department of our university. So the reason why we conducted this study is in my next slide. So PUP, the PUP College of Communication, prior to offering a new core subject, Gender and Media, for its Bachelor of Arts in Broadcast and Bachelor of Arts in Journalism programs are, of course, because by the mandate of the Philippine Commission on Higher Education, we sought to develop a research-based syllabus. Now, with both of us authors being program heads during that time, we conducted the study on said core subject based on the perception of media practitioners because basically it's about media and gender. So specifically, the level of attitude of the media practitioners on the subject outcomes, the contents, and recommended activities for the subject were determined during our survey. Okay, so with our statement of the problem, we sought to develop a research-based syllabus. By the way, for broadcast, this is required in their CMO, whereas in journalism, this is actually an elective course. Now, specifically, the study sought to attain the following objectives. First is that to determine the profile of our media practitioners and to know the level of their attitudes on the subject outcomes of gender and media based on the following domains of learning. Of course, we have the cognitive domain, we have the affective domain, and we have the psychomotor domain. And then we identify the contents of the subject, gender and media, as suggested by the media practitioners. And of course, that would also include our output in our RRL, where we took all the necessary materials coming from our very own Institute of Gender and Media in our university. So the fourth is to recommend activities that will assess the learning experiences of our students. So our research framework uh, is sourced out from Sheriff's um, attitudinal theory. So it's the social judgment actually. It has three zones of latitudes, and as you would see, the latitude of acceptance is the variety of thoughts that a certain person perceives as realistic. Now, we are talking about the media practitioners here. So as you would see, the message here is gender and development, and then the ego involvement, of course, is based from the demographics of our media practitioners. And then we have their latitude of acceptance, the range of positive attitudes of the media practitioners on GAD in mass media, and then their latitude of non-commitment, the range of positions of the media practitioners, what they feel, or whether they are neutral to their attitudes on GAD in mass media. And then we have the latitude of rejection, the range of negative attitudes of the media practitioners on GAD in mass media. Now, on our review of related literature, I just would like to give you a recap that various organizations in international, national, and institutional levels have their own initiatives on gender and development programs. Now, in fact, various RRLs manifest that these organizations and educational institutions are active, very active in implementing activities that are part of the GAD programs. However, the institutions are not offering media and communication related programs. So there is really a need for a study on this subject. And it is important to undertake study to understand the integration of GAD and media education. Now, during our research, we only found very few syllabi available on this particular subject. We researched online, and only very few schools are offering media and gender. In fact, the very truth is that the Philippines is spearheading this particular subject in Southeast Asia, and we are very happy that we have this kind of subject because there really is a need for media and gender studies, and I'm sure we would all agree about that. Now, our research method, we made use of the quantitative descriptive research as employed in our study, and we conducted a survey. We distributed Google Forms to various media practitioners in our country, the Philippines. The research is also descriptive since it describes the characteristics of the phenomenon talked about in this study, which is about media and gender. Now, I would like to proceed because my time is so limited. So these are the respondents that we have. Male, 45.95%, female, 43.24%, LGBTQ plus plus 10.81%. So as you would see, we have all of the genders represented in our survey. And then these are their ages: 21 to 30, 48.65, 31 to 40, 16%, 41 to 50, 27%, and 51 to 60, we have 8%. Okay, so the knowledge on gender and development, these are the frequency and percentage distribution the respondents according to the statements on measuring the knowledge on gender and development. Okay, primarily we got this concept, of course, from our IGAD because we have our own IGAD, as I mentioned, in our university. Okay, let me proceed. So, let me discuss with you the results of the distribution of the respondents according to their knowledge level on gender and development. Now, after measuring the respondents' knowledge, here is the result. Now, highly knowledgeable is 2.7, moderately and slightly is a majority, 18.92 and 78.68, and not at all, 2.7. Okay, next is, now, I will not be presenting to you in full detail the results of our tables, the details of our tables, but I will just be summarizing, okay, because primarily the result for all of this is that they strongly agree that these domains be included in the outcomes-based syllabus that we were trying to craft. Okay, so just to give you the title of our tables, we have table 7 titled Attitudes of the Respondents to the Cognitive Domain in the Subject Outcomes. Table 8, attitudes of the respondents to the affective domain. And then table 9, attitudes of the respondents to the psychomotor domain. And then 10, attitudes of the respondents to the content for the subject, media, and gender, the basic concepts and the topics on GAD in media. Table 11, the attitudes of the respondents to the contents for the subject, media, and gender, particularly gender-related theories. Table 12, attitudes of the respondents to the content, particularly laws and ethics affecting media and gender and development. Okay, as I mentioned a while ago, the responses here were all very positive. Again, the practitioners agree that the content of these domains be included in the outcomes-based syllabus that we were framing. Table 13, contents for subject, media, and gender in broadcasting. Table 14, in journalism. Table 15, in advertising and PR. And in 16, corporate and government communication. Now, in Table 17, attitudes of the respondents on the modes of gender analysis in media. And then, suggested strategies in facilitating and assessing learning for the subject, media, and gender. I would now go to the summary of findings and conclusions. Okay, first and foremost, most media practitioners are slightly knowledgeable on gender and development. Specifically, there is a need for them also to understand in detail. Okay, most of them understood the basic concepts, but not necessarily the details underlying these concepts. So they also need to be taught, and they agree also that they would be needing webinars, webinars dealing with the domains, domains such as gender analysis, gender responsive research program, and gender responsive curricular program. They would also need to be acquainted. Why? Because most of them are also coming from different universities, and they also took up communication. So they agree that when our students are deployed in the mass media industries, they expect that these students are already competent enough, and they understand the concepts of media and GAD, or gender and development, because during their time when they were still studying, they were not taught these principles, as so they admit. Now,
Sorry
media
to
practitioners,
interrupt,
the
ma'am.
second,
10 minutes and 58
okay,
seconds.
Okay. On the second, media practitioners agree on the following: cognitive, affective, psychomotor. Number 3, media practitioners agree to include the following contents in the subject, media, and gender. And lastly, gender-sensitive training is the most effective strategy in facilitating and assessing learning for the subject, media, and gender. So these are our recommendations: webinars, and then we have outcomes by media practitioners, and then suggested content for the media and gender elective subject may be taken from suggested inputs of the media. Gender sensitive training should be endorsed. Um, our college, of course, upon the recommendation of our IGAD, may frame the syllabus as a result of our study. And then PUPCOC may conduct webinar workshops also involving other educational institutions that offer communication courses in the country to further enhance the content of this GAD syllabus. Okay, so just to let you have a brief view of the developed syllabus, it's here. So this is the first page. The second page, as you would see, the concepts integrated, and up to week 16, modes, GAD in different fields of the media, and of course, all of
I'm
the other
sorry, ma'am,
prerequisites to
but I
develop
will
the
have to
syllabus.
cut you as
Okay.
there are 8 more.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
That will
you.
be all. Thank you, Ma'am Gwyneth.
Okay, our next presenter will be Suzette, and her topic is effectiveness of a reflective module towards students' responsible use of the social media. Take it away, Ma'am Suzette.
Okay, Chair. Good afternoon, fellow educators and friends. I'm Maria Teresa Suzette Balgos from De La Salle Santiago Zobel School of Muntinlupa City, Philippines. And I would like to share with you my action research entitled Effectiveness of a Reflective Module Towards Students' Responsible Use of Social Media. When DepEd mandated the teaching of Media and Information Literacy, or MIL, as a separate subject in senior high school under the K-12 curriculum, we did not have enough teachers qualified to teach. Because I went through the training in MIL under the Philippine Institute of Communications in Asia, I volunteered to teach in our night high school for 3 academic years. If you look at the MIL course content in the Department of Education's curriculum guide, you will find that it focuses more on mass media and has few references to new media, a part of which is social media. Covering a wide range of topics, the course is offered in only one semester for a period of 80 hours. With a limited time, the topic on social media is not given emphasis, and that students miss out on the importance of understanding its impact on oneself and in knowing how to use it responsibly. Given our students and their generation's apparent attraction to social media, I saw this as an opportunity to enhance the teaching of MIT and research. Literally left to their own devices, our students are very much engaged in social media. Problems may arise from their engagement, but can they cope with the pressure? Are they equipped with the necessary tools to handle these problems? How do they confront a situation on social media that makes them feel uncomfortable? Hence, this is my improvement theory for this action research. If I incorporate a reflective module on social media use in the MIL class, the students will be more aware as to how they engage on these social networking platforms and result in a more responsible and meaningful use. The following are the research problems that I came up with. What is the range and scope of engagement the grade 12 senior high school students of PLSZ have with the social media platforms? What is the students' level of understanding on the role and effect of social media in their lives? What strategies can students use to make their engagement in social media more responsible and meaningful? How effective is the lesson module in making the students understand the benefits and problems in social media so that they will be more responsible in their use of these platforms? The research participants were the 145 grade 12 accountancy and business management students who took up media and information literacy in one term. The research instruments that I used were the survey questionnaire, consisting of 17 questions, the 5 reflection questions given after the video showing, and a small group discussions of scenarios using the common sense education's feeling and options thinking routine, which consists of 4 questions on identifying, feeling, imagining, and saying, plus additional 2 wrap-up questions. The survey, composed of 17 questions, was sent via Google Form. The asynchronous lesson module contained the video entitled Teen Voices that students watched and reflected on by answering the five guide questions. This was facilitated through TED-Ed's lesson creator platform. The students were also introduced with a feeling and options thinking routine that were used to guide them as they discussed given hypothetical social media situation. Their discussions and answers to the wrap-up questions were video recorded via Flipgrid. The quantitative data from the survey were analyzed using descriptive statistics, and the qualitative data, on the other hand, underwent thematic analysis. Out of the 145 MIL students, 100% of the 103 survey respondents have at least one social media account. They ranked in Instagram as their #1 choice, followed by Facebook as #2 and Twitter as #3. Related studies show that Facebook is no longer popular among teenagers, but they have FB accounts in order for them to access other social media websites such as Instagram and Snapchat and other third-party apps and websites. This makes their logging in more convenient for them. But why Instagram? Teenagers can post more photos for their followers to see, and they also get to follow celebrities and see the latter's uploaded photos. A good 73.5 of them check in their social media once a day, 19.6 check in every hour. The students may just be checking once a day, but the question should be, how many hours do they spend on social media? 31.4 spend 2 to 3 hours on social media, 25.5 spend 4 to 5 hours, while 24.5 spend more than 5 hours on social media. This data gives us a better picture of how much the students engage in social media. Continuously or intermittently, 2 hours minimum can pose a distraction, especially on a school day, right? 75.5% of the students post content or comments at least once a day. Okay, and 79.4 of them check their social media before sleeping. A lot, right? And 61.8% of them do this upon waking up, even before they get up from bed. Based on the above given results, we can conclude that the students are very much engaged with social media, and whether this engagement is meaningful and whether they are responsible in its use or not is another matter. In my analysis of their reflections, the data show remarkable insights and realizations to the guide questions given after the video presentation. To the question, what do you think are the benefits of social media? The following themes were identified from the students' common answers. These are just the top 5. To connect and communicate with other people, to express their views about things, to get information and learn new things, to share common interests and beliefs, and to be entertained. While the participants saw the benefits that social media bring, they're also cognizant of the negative effects as expressed in the following themes. Social media can cause stress and anxiety because of fear of missing out, or what they call FOMO, peer pressure, and cyberbullying. It can also diminish genuine social interaction. It can cause unrealistic expectations of oneself. It can be a source of misinformation and disinformation. It can enable criminal activities such as phishing, harassment, extortion, and identity theft. To the question, how can social media affect your relationship with your friends? The participants were able to give meaningful and thoughtful insights as shown in the following themes. Comparing oneself to others, hindering them to have meaningful in-person interaction, feeling excluded or missing out on things, making connection easier when they are apart. If that's positive. To the task, Write one strategy you can use moving forward to get the best out of social media. The following things were identified out of the responses: being aware of your feelings about things on social media, focusing on posts that spread positive vibes and make you feel good, being true to oneself and not pretending to be someone you're not. And the last one is practicing digital citizenship. Having read through all the participants' responses, it can be concluded that a reflective module in MIL is indeed effective in helping them or equipping themselves with a helpful tool so that they can use social media more responsibly and in a more meaningful way. What are my insights here? Upon reflection, I see the need to take an honest look at the school's MIL curriculum plan, and if needed, recommend an emphasis on topics that would impact the students most, such as social media, where am I? Social media, uh, digital citizenship, and etc. Students need to be equipped with the necessary skills to give them the ability and confidence to be proactive and responsible in the use of social media. Okay. Collaborating with the teachers and taking an honest look at possible problems or gaps in the lesson and how it is carried out in class is vital in um, in order to implement an effective and relevant instructional plan moving forward. There should be a plan to introduce the subject of MIL in the lower levels, such as in grade 11 and junior high school. And even in the grade school, either as a separate subject or integrated with other subjects. More importantly, reflective modules and social media should be used in the succeeding years so that our younger students in these grade levels will be better equipped with the necessary tools for them to have a meaningful and responsible engagement with these social networking sites. Okay.
Thank you, Suzette. That was 10 minutes, 28 seconds
All right.
for your
Can I
title
share?
presentation. I hope you do well understand. Now, our next presenter is Gion with his topic Philippine cinema factors that affect the role of independent Filipino film producers in the age of streaming. Take it away, Gion.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you can see my slide and hear my audio. So for this afternoon, I'm going to present my research titled Philippine Cinema, Factors that Affect the Role of Independent Filipino Film Producers in the Age of Streaming. First, I would like to thank the Asian Media Information and Communication Center Conference 2021 for this opportunity. My name is Gion Pagdanganan, and I am a faculty of the Senior High School Department of De La Salle University, Manila, and I specialize in and teach media and information literacy. Now, to give you a short background or introduction about my study explores the evolving role of independent Filipino film producers in the age of streaming. Basically, my study focuses on two things. The first one is the evolving role of independent Filipino film producers. And second, I investigated the role of film streaming in the contemporary landscape of Philippine cinema. Today, the producer has more inclusive creative participation when it comes to affecting and influencing a film's final narrative style pertaining to the production scale, the distribution aspect, and exhibition strategies. And with that, we can see the rise and high consumption of various streaming sites or platforms, not only here in the Philippines, but also across Asia and across the world. And here in the Philippines, we have seen the usage of streaming sites such as Netflix, ABS-CBN's I Want TFC, and also Disney Channel or Disney Plus and other streaming sites. And it has affected the way we consume films, and it has affected the way we conceptualize and produce films as well. Now, the main research question or problem that I want to address is this one. How do streaming platforms affect the role of independent Filipino film producers in the story development, distribution, and exhibition phases of contemporary films? So aside from just focusing my analysis and study on the streaming platforms, I have also connected it to the evolving role of independent Filipino film producers and how they are maximizing and using these streaming platforms that we have right now. And because of the COVID-19 pandemic, I think we have seen as well the absence of physical cinemas or physical theaters. And a lot of producers and filmmakers in the film and media industry have shifted their attention and focus in distributing their films in streaming platforms. Now, for the literature review, I have gathered the following resources and analyzed it. Basically, my literature review highlights 4 general aspects. The first one is the collaboration between the producer and director. Second is the administrative, financial, and creative roles of the producer. And the third part of my literature review focuses on the streaming industry, particularly in the contemporary film and media industry, and some technicalities when it comes to streaming. I also analyzed the viewing models and patterns in streaming. Now, going to the research design or method of my study is a qualitative study, and it applied the purposive homogeneous sampling technique by conducting in-depth semi-structured interviews with award-winning and globally recognized independent Filipino film producers. So here are the participants of my study. So I have interviewed the following independent Filipino film producers. Number 1 is Alenberg Ang. Second is Arlene Cuevas. Third, Army Reka Canindin. Fourth, Corinne Jimenez. Fifth, Ria Limhap. And the last is Pamela L. Reyes. Now, these producers have produced independent Filipino films, and they have also showcased their respective films in different local and international film festivals. Now, after the interview and after transcribing the data and after analyzing it, I have gathered the following results. And my results highlight 3 factors that affect the role of independent Filipino film producers in the age of streaming. The first one is the universality of a film story. That's the first factor. Second is audience character. And third factor is the flexibility of streaming. Now, the first factor talks about the universality of a film story. In the development of the script, the producers highlight that each story must be universally appealing, most specifically right now with the advent of streaming. The producers have highlighted in the interview that each story must be universally appealing, and they may adjust the story or concept of the film based on the preference of not only the director or producer, but also the preference of a particular streaming site. Now, a particular streaming site may, let's say, for example, want a specific story or genre that they want to focus on. So this is the first factor, the universality of a film story. Second factor is the audience character. In this factor, I have highlighted 3 aspects. The first one is the perception of Filipino audience to local films, particularly to independent films. Second is traditional practices of theater owners. And third, I think this is also very important, the technological challenges that we have of streaming, most specifically with the digital divide that we have right now in media and film industry. As we all know, when we stream films online, we need quality gadgets and also we need quality internet. So these are some of the things that affect the second factor, audience character. And the third, I think, is one of the most important factors, flexibility of streaming. So the producers have highlighted the following. Now, streaming can be an alternative venue to exhibit and produce films in various formats. So right now, we're not only confined to 1 hour or 2 hour film, but we can also explore different formats. And second, it can also serve as a contemporary space for archiving Filipino films. And streaming can also provide new employment opportunities, not only for film professionals, but also for media practitioners. And to summarize it and to conclude it, with the rise of streaming, producers now have various opportunities to shape and expand their role in the story development, distribution, and exhibition stages. And right now, we must see streaming not only as an alternative platform, but also as a main platform, most specifically with what we're currently experiencing right now with the closure of cinemas, not just across the country, but also across the world. And since my study only highlighted the film industry, I would also recommend to investigate and do qualitative studies about the creative practice of not only film industry, but also the television industry, since it's also a big part of the media industry. And I also want to investigate in the future and do some studies about the audience consumption of television content in streaming platforms. So that's it. Thank you again to the Asian Media and Information Communication Center Conference 2021 for this opportunity. I am Gion Pagdanganan from De La Salle University, Manila. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gian, for that presentation. You were right on the dot. Thank you. I appreciate that. Our next presenter would be Trang Kim from the Golden Communications Group to present a research on incorporating media literacy in science communication to improve scientific literacy in the era of disinformation order. You have the virtual floor, Trang.
Good afternoon. I'm very honored to be here and to discuss a topic that I'm very passionate about, which is to utilize media literacies into science communications to improve the scientific literacies in this era of information disorder. So in this presentation, I will cover the topic about scientific and media literacies, the existing issues of science communications, and my proposed solutions when it comes to incorporating media literacies into science communications, and a few points about future exploration into the topic. So first of all, we are living in a world where the masses is accessing information primarily through mass media, internet, or social media. And this kind of creating a environment for them to be very vulnerable toward this information, toward information disorder. And as science communicators, it's very important for us to understanding the role of media literacies hand in hand with scientific literacies in changing this kind of behaviors and improving the environment of and the ethical environment of information sharing in the science communications. So when it comes to so we can see that with scientific literacy, this is the ability to be aware and understanding the concept and the principle of science, and have the capacity to think in a scientific and make decisions in a scientific way, and utilizing this knowledge to think and to make decisions on your personal issues. Whereas media literacy is this ability to access, analyze, and evaluate and create messages in a variety of form, and especially to understand the role and the impact of media in society and in their personal decisions and perceptions. With this information, we can usually, when people talk about media literacies and scientific literacy, they refer to the consumers, the end receivers of the message. But the responsibility is not only about the consumers. As producers of science communication, it's very important for us to understanding the impact and the concept of media literacies hand in hand with scientific literacies to improve the quality and the ethical of our messagings, and to help the audience to make more informed decisions. So looking into the science communication challenges, we are stepping into the new media environment, disrupting the traditional linear process of science communications. So the new media refer to the social networking sites, the individual networking format like blog or podcast. And this kind of environment create a digital sphere where people are not just receiving information, but they have the chance to communicate into dialogues and conversations, encouraging a participatory cultures where people want to engage and interact with science informations. This kind cultures are not only for science community, but also for the multi-stakeholders communities of non-scientific people who want to engage and understand and discuss about science matters to make decisions in their life. These peoples are the part users, the producers and consumers of media, as they are the one who initially receive and absorb this scientific information and in turn they interpret and create their own messaging to their network. Overall, this is an environment of the telescience in contrast to the big science, as they encourage the proliferations of user-generated content, encouraging the content and conversation from the non-scientific public, in contrast to the traditional linear process of science communication when we have the publishers and the scientists and the reviewers. And overall, this is an environment of interactivities. When they are more conversational, they require an advanced level of interactivities instead of a top-down method that they used to be. So in this kind of new environment, we are facing a lot of challenges when it comes to the effectiveness and ethical approach for science communications. So first of all, in the new media environment, it's very difficult for content quality control and gatekeeping, as the new media environment is kind of like an open sources instead of a closed source, verified peer review like publishers or journals. And this kind of open sources environment lead to the information overloading, where people are receiving a lot of information for different sources and different people with different intentions, and the customization nature of the internet make them selectively exposed to certain type of knowledge that confirm their biases instead of a diversity of informations. This leading to a kind of like a polarized echo chambers on, especially when it comes to controversial issues like the elections or the pandemic and vaccinations. Another issue when it comes to science communication is that in the new media environment, there is a lot of neglected space, especially for the minority communities, as we need to address the cultural narrowness or ambient racism within the science communications, as they're trying to expose and to reach out to a more diverse of nations, identity, and communities when it comes to science conversations. Lastly, the lack of comprehensions and connection between the science community and the public, it kind of like an ongoing issues. As the public fight very distant to the science communities, we find difficult to access, to understand, and utilize science in their life. And all of these issues create a better trust from the science communicators to the public, as the internet and other methods of information sharing allow untruth to spread widely and rapidly, such as conspiracies, and audience actually buying into this conspiracy as they can actually understand the information as opposed to valid science information. So with these challenges, I believe that for science communicators, the task here is to improve the connections and comprehensions by finding a shared language and voice to speak to the public audience. And second of all is for gatekeeping. This is referring to the self-reflections and quality gatekeeping and showcase the proof of credibility for audience. These two tasks will be allowing the science communicators to gain trust and persuade their audience. So how can we do this? Looking at the two tasks of science communicators that I just point out, looking back to media literacy as well, I believe that these two main concepts of media literacy would be very helpful in utilizing and improve the quality of science communications. So in media literacy, we have the presumptions concept, meaning that the media require not just the mindful consumptions of the audience, but also the mindful productions of the producers of content. And second of all is the self-gatekeeping, meaning that as we know that media messages are filters and interpreted through the individual lens of both consumers and producers, it's very important for producers of content and media to understanding their own intention and biases, to reflect and improve the ethical aspect of their messaging. So from these two concepts, this is my proposed framework for science communicators to improve the effectiveness and ethic of their content creations. So first of all, it is all about the self-reflection or self-gatekeeping. Silent communicators need to understand their own scientific limitations and as well as their intention and biases when it comes to communicating certain knowledge to the public. And by this, combined with media literacy knowledge, they can improve the ethic of the mass audience public when it comes to silent communications by improving the credibility of their messagings and encourage verification from the mass audience public. And by combining with communications and media literacy method, they can improve the effectiveness of their messaging by improving the awareness, comprehensions, and application through the presentation and style of their content. So to go into more detail, this is a 12 indicator of the quality of silent communicators, and they focus on the trustworthiness and scientific rigors of the message, which mean the reliability of the informations and the education on the knowledge creation and disseminations. Second is the presentation and style, how to make it accessible, appealing, and understood by the public without compromising the ethical aspect. And lastly is the connection to society, to show how this message is responsible and being the middleman between science and the society and contribute to the change in both of this. So with the aspect of and the indicators of effectiveness, we have spellbinding, meaning how to attract and captivate the audience. Clear is to be accessible and straightforward with the languages. Coherent and contextual, meaning giving sufficient context so that the audience is able to understand the role and the relevance of the scientific knowledge to their life. And being purposefully and targeted, meaning that to understand the audience, their style and their format and the tone to reach to their meanings. Impactful here is to introducing new and impactful knowledge and idea that will be beneficial to the audience, and relatable is to connect this kind of knowledge and result of science and concept to the element that people can actually understand and grasp in their daily life. And balance here is to engage with non-scientific background people and bring the content to a larger audience outside of the scientific communities. And ethic, obviously, it is about scientific, is how we showcase the method and reasoning behind and show the signal of credibility for the audience. The factor is how we can provide a truthful and objective presentations of science facts and knowledge. And responsible here is to be able to address controversial topic and provide to counter the mis and disinformation with evidence-based informations. And transparent is to be honest about the funding, the limitations of the research, and how to address certain conflict within the researcher to the audience. So with these indicators, how can
I
we...
really hate to interrupt your presentation, but there are others still presenting. I hope you understand. It's
Okay.
been 10 minutes, 44 seconds already. Thank you. So
Thank you.
our next presenter, is Sonia on the topic comparative study on the usage of Facebook and Twitter. Sony,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Yeah. As my slides are visible,
Yes, just put them on.
very good afternoon to one and all. This is Soni Yadav, Assistant Professor of Jagran Lake City University, Bhopal. And the topic which I am having for today's presentation is comparative study on the uses of Facebook and Twitter with a special reference to the communication of child welfare policies of Chhattisgarh government, India. So if I talk about the importance of communication, as we all know that without communication, you can't do or you can't execute anything in your particular perspective. And if I talk about the communication in the sector of development and the communication of in the sector of awareness, it is something which is very important for the communicators to identify most effective tools and sources to make their audience aware about their messages and the things they are doing. So the government policymakers have used various mass media platforms uh, to find out and reach out to the actual problem of the society. The new media, especially social media like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc., allows users to establish relationship and experience a sense of belonging and despite temporal and spatial boundaries. Government of Chhattisgarh is also working on many sectors of child welfare and is running many effective schemes and the policies and interventions for welfare of the child.
Excuse me, Sony, can you put your presentation on a slide presentation view so that it will
Ma'am,
move?
I have done so.
But what is flash on screen is the outline slide. But however, you may continue. Do continue, please.
Yeah. So if I talk about the schemes of this particular Chhattisgarh government is having tremendous effect on the welfare of that particular region. The review of literatures includes many literatures and the literatures like research papers, journals, and the reports of the government. Few of them have been mentioned in the presentation. The research objectives which we are having for this particular study is to study the social media handles of women and child welfare department of Chhattisgarh, and to identify the reach of each platform and to find the platforms is which platform is more effective in its communication of child welfare policies of the Chhattisgarh government. The research methodology which has been used for this particular thing has the research design is your descriptive research design with quantitative approach, and the research method which has been used for this particular research is content analysis. Purposive sampling has been used for identification and selecting the social media handles of this particular department, and the timeline from January 1st, 2020 to 31st December 2020. So the data which this particular research includes and based on is your secondary data because this is a content analysis on the content or the post these platforms, the platforms like Facebook and Twitter of these department is having. These are the pages of this which I have studied. Like in the left hand side, we can see the Facebook page of this particular department, and in the right hand side, we can see the Twitter handle of this particular department. The handles, the first table of this particular research is actually talking about the introduction and the followers which these pages or the individual pages are having. If I talk about the Twitter handle of Chhattisgarh government, Women and Child Welfare Department of Chhattisgarh government, then it was introduced in July 2017, and the followers which the page is having is 7,939. If I'll talk about the handle, Facebook handle or the Facebook page of this particular department, it was also introduced in July 2017, but the followers the page is having is 8,720. Then the second table is actually talking about the number of posts each platform is having in different categories. Like this table actually shows that the Department of Women and Child Welfare is effective with its communication in both social media platforms, but they are more effective for their communication in Twitter with some of 15 posts in text category, 100 posts in photos or pictures, 15 posts in videos, and 22 posts in link. Especially if I talk about the retweet content or the retweet part of this Twitter handle, okay, is very high and is very effective in all the categories, and which we can see in the further tables and study. The likes in the post of each platforms. This table highlights the likes the post of each platform is having. Like if I talk about Facebook is having higher likes on the post with photos with 6,028, and the likes on post with 1,206 some on videos. Then if I talk about the post on links and links of Twitter category, it is having 267 likes, and especially if I talk about this retweet category, it is having 9,108 likes on their post. Means the reach of, if I talk about the reach of the post or the retweet post is more higher than anything else in these two platforms. Then if I talk about the comments, comments are the element on the post which is actually identifies, which is actually designate and signifies that the how the audience are involved in that particular content. So this particular table highlights the number of comments the posts are having on each platform. Like videos on Facebook is having 549 comments, followed by 479 comments on retweets posts of Twitter, and post with photos on Facebook and Twitter is having 171 and 178 comments. So therefore we can say that, and also one more thing, if I talk about the comments in these posts, they are actually signifies the involvement of the audience, means how they are liking the particular post and how they are finding the particular post helpful and communicative and creative for them. Those kind of comments were there in the post. Then next is shares. When I'm talking about the shares on the post, the shares is actually talking about reflects the effectiveness of your product, which makes your audience to share that particular content furthermore. So when I'm talking about this fifth table, it is actually highlights the number of shares the communicator is having on their post on both the platforms, and which platform is having more shares. Retweet posts are having maximum of shares with mean value of 21.10, and the mean value of post with photos on Twitter is having 5.52, and the followed by 2.56 on videos and 1.62 on photos of Facebook posts. Lastly, we are going to talk about the views of the post, which is actually talking about the engagement intensity of your particular content. So therefore, this particular Twitter post on videos are having more views than the mean value, with the mean value of 25.37 than the videos of posts of Facebook with 14.70 mean value. As we can see in the table 2, as we have seen in the table 2, that Facebook is having higher number of video posts with the sum of 28, which is greater than the sum of Twitter post, Twitter video post, which is 15. Okay, therefore we can say that the Twitter is having higher engagement on the video, on the video content than the Facebook. Finally, if I'll talk about the communication, if I'll talk about the conclusion of this particular thing, the whole research, communication can be effective not only when it is adopted to induce change in awareness, knowledge, attitude, and behavior, but also as a tool build trust, share knowledge, and explore options, enhancing the overall results and sustainability of development initiatives. The government organizations are also using social media handles to achieve their goals of development in many countries. After analyzing a social media handles of Facebook and Twitter of Women and Child Development Department of Chhattisgarh government in India, we have say that, or we can say that the department is using both the communication platforms very effectively, but the Facebook is having higher followers and higher audience reach and engagement than the Twitter, as the likes and the comments which the Facebook posts are having is higher than the Twitter. But on the other hand, if I'll talk about the Twitter is working um, more effectively in engaging and communicating and sustaining their audience with their content, or retaining their audience with their content. Like if we'll talk about the retweet content, it is having very higher engagement than any other content of both the platforms. And if I'll talk about the engagement on the content of Twitter, take 101 post is there in the Twitter, including text, video, um, links and kind of thing, and which is having most highest likes, and the comments is like 9108, and sum of shares are like 2638. Therefore we can conclude that both the social media platforms are playing very effective role in the communication and spreading awareness of their of the department's activities and policies. And Twitter and Facebook both are playing their effective role in different categories. Means if I'll talk about the Facebook, it is very reachable, and it is the reach of the Facebook content is higher than the Twitter, but the engagement part of the Twitter content is the higher than the Facebook content. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we're really pressed with time. Um, our, our next presenter is Ruela, and she will talk about rediscovering the literary forms of Surigao, a collection of legends, rituals, sayings, songs, and poetry. Floor is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Rowella Parucho from the College of Arts and Sciences Education of the University of Mindanao. This is my study, Rediscovering the Literary Forms of Surigao, a collection of legends, riddles, sayings, songs, and poetry. Literature plays a vital role in the identity of particular groups of people because it contains their traditions, values, beliefs, and aspirations. According to Kahayon and Zulueta, literature is a collection of compositions that deal with life experiences. Likewise, Stan agrees that literature presents human experiences. However, unlike great news, literature presents life and experiences by not telling readers what they are, but also showing them through a medium called language. And these are the objectives of my study: to respond to the clarion call for the preservation of the local literature. This study also attempts to offer part of the Surigao's culture contained in their literature, to preserve the traditions of the early Surigaonon people in the remote past and prevent them from being forgotten by today's young generation. Also, the scarcity of published literary materials in the Surigaonon language has inspired the researcher to compile their native literature. And these are my research questions. Number one, what are the different versions of the existing literary forms of Surigao? What are the ways to preserve the Surigaonon literature? This study is anchored in the theories of functionalism of Talcott Parson in 1954. This theory suggests that literature operates within a community to ensure conformity to the accepted cultural norms and continuity from generation to generation to maintain the stability of that culture. And also from the symbolic interactionism of Mead and other psychologists, which focus on the interpretation on social meanings that is given to behavior, and on the way such interpretation helps to construct the social world, the identities of people, and ultimately how they behave. This study is qualitative research using the ethnographic design. Qualitative research is designed to help researchers understand people and the social and cultural context within which they live. Such studies allow the complexities and differences of worlds under study to be explored and represented. On the other hand, ethnographic studies deal with collecting and analyzing of data about cultural groups. The respondents of this study were the 22 Surigaonons. The researcher utilized the purposive type of sampling in identifying and choosing the research respondents. The respondents have direct knowledge or information about the phenomenon of study. The researcher also used the snowball or chain referral sampling, which is a design that uses referrals from the respondents to recommend another respondent. The respondents were categorized into three. Number one, those whose works were documented and published. Number two, those whose work or contribution were documented but unpublished. And number three, those whose knowledge of literature came from an oral tradition that has never been in printed pages. The researcher observed ethical consideration in the conduct of this study. The respondents were informed about the purpose of the interview, The respondents also gave their full consent that the information collected from them will be part of the researchers' collection of the literary forms of Surigao. They were given assurance that they will be appropriately acknowledged as the source of this data, especially for the writers and composers of these Surigaonon literary forms. The data was collected from the in-depth interview with the respondents, and also from secondary sources like unpublished studies and other resource materials, such as compilation of these literary forms by some respondents. And these were the results of the study. The researcher was able to collect 35 legends, 13 riddles, 18 sayings, 22 songs, and 11 poems from the 22 respondents. And these were the responses on how to preserve the Surigaonon literature: to institutionalize a Center for Surigaonon Studies or Language, and to integrate the efforts of the government LGUs and national agencies in promoting and preserving language through literature, to conduct research and record an oral history, genealogy, folklore, and folk songs by engaging the public through events like poetry recital. Also to encourage the Surigaonons to compose or write Surigaonon poetry, songs, videos, blogs to preserve their literature because it is a part of their heritage and wealth as people. Written literature and oral traditions should be preserved in the libraries and have digital copies of it. The literary form should be taught in classrooms for the young generations to be aware of their literature and appreciate the value of studying this. There should be academic contests like play production and theater arena in schools, which should be done regularly to hand down these literary pieces from one generation to the other. And these are my conclusions. The Surigaonon possess a variety of literary forms to flaunt their rich cultural heritage. However, these works were not published and no regional representation in the Philippine literature books. The Surigaonons possess a natural talent for writing literary pieces. It was manifested in the numerous literary works that the researcher encountered. Some language shifts were noted in the transition from the traditional to modern society. Some foreign words or expressions have been integrated and slowly replacing the indigenous language. And these are the recommendations. Encourage the need for preservations of the Surigaonon culture, not just by a few people, but also the local government and other private organizations. The programs created by non-government organizations to inspire songwriters and other literary composers must continue. A similar study must be conducted on literary forms of Surigao which are not included in this collection. The literary collection must be displayed in public libraries. The writers must promote the enrichment of Surigao literature through the inclusion of these literary forms in books and other materials for publication, identity, and preservation. And lastly, the literary forms of Surigao can be integrated in the teaching of literature and mother tongue-based education in the primary and secondary schools in Surigao del Norte and Surigao del Sur provinces. That ends my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Marajao Karajao, this is Ruela Parucho, BA Journalism Program of the University of Mindanao.
Wow, that was impressive, Ruela. I timed it, and it only took you 6 minutes and 37 seconds. If you don't have any last words, then let's proceed to the next presenter, Sorhalia Latif Yusof from the Mindanao State University, and her topic is Media Information Literacy Drives Science Communication, #MIL4, the Ulama Project Insights. Take it away, Sorhalia.
Yes, so thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Salam to all who are here in the AMIC conference. I'm very thankful that I was invited by the AMIC for this. And so to everyone, I am Sorhaila Latif Yusof from the Mindanao State University, Malawi City. And I have been a media and information literacy professor for quite some time now. So it is my pleasure to share with you some of the inspirations or the activities that we have been doing since we were able to join this endeavor. What we see nowadays is actually the difficulty of everyone regarding this informing one another, educating one another, and raising awareness. And for being a science communicator, we all know that we are actually informing, educating, and also raising awareness for science-related topics, and such as this present health crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic. And we have experienced how difficult for us to make our communities realize and at the same time understand how to give trust, to different people. All right, so because of this, there are so many health crises that we are facing also nowadays. As they say, there is this so-called disinfodemic, or the infodemic that we know also. Now, this different communities around the globe, specifically my community here in Llano del Sur, we actually see how the health crisis have scattered and have given a lot of information disorders, and also it's already mushrooming around social media, and the different stakeholders are now or cannot find the best ways in seeing things and realizing how difficult is media versus science, and at the same time seeing also the difficulty of the different problems around us. All right, so without further elaboration, we all know that media can be or can make and make a group of people and even an idea or a scientific idea at that. And because we wanted to understand the pandemic, we are so afraid that our media platforms can either be a fuel to disinformation, and at the same time destroy a lot of factors that will make our frontliners become understood, and at the same time given reality or given a realization, sorry, of how the pandemic should be fought. So here in the Bangsamoro, I am very grateful that there is a study done during the height of the crisis in 2020. The different organizations came to different communities, like here in the Bangsamoro, and with the help of the researchers from Internews, this is an organization that works on information ecosystem assessment, entitled Disconnected Information Dynamics in the BARM, or the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, during the COVID-19 pandemic. And all those BARM participants that they had, they affirmed that their top most trusted sources of information were the religious leaders. This that you see on the screen is actually, how do you call this? It's actually a infographic that Internews made, and I just cropped on, and these are available in their Internews website. And what you can see here is actually the top 5 experts trusted by BARM during the height of the COVID-19. And it is interesting because we are different throughout the Philippines, because it's not just the experts who and the health workers are being trusted here, but it's more of the religious leaders. So it is even more challenging on our part. So what triggered my study then? With the findings of our friends, and we've been part of those collecting data from the ground, we realized that this should be, or the ulama or the Muslim religious leaders should be given much of an attention And one is to give them or equip them with the media and information literacy so that we could see whether they can really work and whether they can really process, you know, the information they see every day. Because if they don't, they will be the ones who will be sharing information that might destroy the entirety or even the concepts of a lot of people, or even destroy, you know, the interest or not even understand, you know, the pandemic. So the project introduced the ulama to the UNESCO's MIL, Media and Information Literacy, which aims to allow individuals to become engaged citizens and responsible decision makers, and then asked to survey and reflections on the advantage of learning the skills in MIL, especially identifying information disorders. And this is what was mentioned in the plenary a while ago, that we needed to understand misinformation, disinformation, and of course, malinformation. So one of the significant results of the study include that MIL, you know, by the way, the participants of this study is a total of 140 ulama. This, when you say ulama, these are the Muslim religious leaders here in Lanao del Sur. And of the participants, 95% of them really affirm that MIL is an important skill, no? For all of the ulama in the entire BARM. For them, they wanted to forward all ulama, when doing da'wah, they should be the ones leading that ethical media or even the understanding of media and information literacy. And then while we also wanted to know whether they have seen the differences of these information disorders, and they said that information disorder types must be learned to minimize as much as possible all of the fake information transfer in da'wah. Now, when we say da'wah, this is actually the individual, or say, how do I call it? It's actually the preaching sessions, no, that our ulama are actually doing on the ground. So when we allow them to do the preaching, and if they themselves will say that this information that you see is right and wrong, for example, if they see about something about a fake information about vaccine, they might forward that as the right information. So you see, that's how important how important is information disorder orientation to be given to these ulama. And of course, interestingly, 100% of them made that reflection and suggested that there are so many things that can be done, no? And one of these is that the program should invite not only the ulama, but also and alimats. Alimats are the female ones, but more so the ordinary people of Lanao who can understand the influence of this information. And this can be replicated and done not only in the city, but the entire province. Enhance the training as well of the ulama to learn how to share this to the masajid, meaning how they can transfer the information in the different mosques, no? Plural of masjid is masajid. And this will not only help the ulama, but more so the ordinary people of Lanao when transmitted. And this kind of training will also enlighten other ulama not to debate and argue about their akidah on social media, and about their fears about vaccine, no, can be lessened, no? And of course, mothers at home should also be reached out to give similar understanding of what media and information literacy is. So those are some of the reflections. So I would like to conclude that there is really a need to sustain the understanding of the media's role in communicating science information, such as this type of pandemic that we are facing right now, especially in this part of the country, and the scientific researches revolving around it. And of course, information sources of different stakeholders or sectors should be taken into consideration to forward and equip them with necessary information skills. So with that, Sangibu Salamat. I'm again Sir Haila Latif Yusuf from Mindanao State University. Thank you very much, Dr. Pusta, for the chance.
Thank you, Sir Alia. We learned much about ulama. Okay, so certainly but not the least, allow me to present uh, our esteemed friend, Dr. Joey Ruben Alagaran from the Palgion Group, presenting his research on integrating media and information literacy and proposed ASEAN Communication Competency Framework. The floor is yours, Dr. Joey.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Gwen. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
Can you hear
Yes,
me?
sir.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. So mine is a conceptual paper, which I presented initially during the UNESCO Global MIL Week last month. No? And I said, maybe since this is about ASEAN Communication Competency Framework, so why should I not present this as well to my ASEAN neighbors, no? And who are here now, present here now in our conference. So my topic is entitled Integrating Media and Information Literacy in the proposed ASEAN Communication Competency Framework. Let me just give you a background that this the study college as part of development of this is driven by the Commission on Higher Education in the Philippines. And then I was still part of that group. And then we look into the common communication competencies of the ASEAN schools. And in the process, we develop a competency framework that the communication schools will be able to adopt in offering their programs. So in view of globalization and breakdown of national barriers, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, so the need to become a single entity into an ASEAN community. This allows free flow of goods, investment, and capital among ASEAN member states, including the exchange of professionals and skilled workers. Across ASEAN competencies and skills of communication professionals and staff, across ASEAN, competencies and skills of communication professionals and staff need to be reviewed and studied to develop the human resources based on common communication qualifications. ASEAN communication competencies need to be harmonized to develop a competency framework that would allow better student and faculty exchange, credit transfer of academic units, sharing of professional expertise, among others. So as I said, Miriam College in the Philippines conducted a study on the development of an ASEAN Communication Competency Framework. The framework is based on the common knowledge, attitudes, and skills expected of graduates of communication programs in 5 ASEAN universities from Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. These are the founding members of the ASEAN, if you know that very well. No? It may serve as a guide for enhancing communication curricula across the region and creating equivalencies and pathways based on commonly identified competency needs. This is this is the framework, all right? And the framework emphasizes the need to equip the students with 7 key competencies. We have writing, digital competencies, research and analytical skills, speech, ethics, and cross-cultural communication. So how then do we incorporate or integrate media and information literacy in each of the 7 competencies? In writing, communication programs must emphasize the importance of writing skills. Teaching students how to write compelling messages must be aligned with media and information literacy skills. students must be taught to write more responsibly and ethically. Writing allows students to express their views on different issues, but they must be taught how to write for different platforms more truthfully. How about in digital competencies? Communication programs must likewise enhance students' digital competencies. There is also a need to develop the communication competencies needed in a digital society.
We have understood very well
Hello.
the presentation.
Hello there.
Na.
Hi there, Dr. Sol.
May I
Okay.
please put it on mute? Yeah. Sorry, Doc.
Okay. So to continue, there is also a need to develop the communication competencies needed in a digital society, such as digital fluency, digital citizenship, media and information literacy, and communication during the pandemic. In developing the digital literacy skills of students, they must be taught how to access information more skillfully, analyze and evaluate messages online more critically, and create or post information on social media more responsibly and ensure safety as well. In research and analytical skills, communication programs must develop students' research and analytical skills. These skills include analytical research, quantitative research, information analytics, and big data. Students must be taught to generate information from legitimate sources when used in their research, observe research ethics in gathering data, and translate this data into more popular form. Speech communication. Communication programs must also underline the importance of speech communication and public speaking. Students must learn how to speak more eloquently and confidently in public. But the content of the speech must be developed to observe ethics and responsibility. In communication and entrepreneurship, communication programs must enhance students' entrepreneurial skills. Students must learn not to wait for opportunities to come, but they should know how to create these opportunities. They should be putting up businesses that promote media entrepreneurship. When they produce business ideas, they must balance profit with social responsibility, and such production must not destroy the environment. They must likewise observe truth in advertising and use persuasive language more ethically and responsibly. In ethics, communication programs must strengthen ethics among students. Media and information literacy emphasizes ethics from the production of content to sharing and dissemination of these messages. Students must be taught ethics to allow them to practice moral reasoning, especially in the development of messages. And last, cross-cultural communication. Communication programs must promote cross-cultural understanding, as well as ethnicities and sustainability. Media and information literacy can be integrated in this course by highlighting its role in the promotion of intercultural dialogue. Students must learn how to respect as they interact with people from other cultures, ethnicities, or other marginalized groups. So this framework indicates that apart from the new innovative courses focusing on digital competencies, it is equally important for graduates to master the basics: writing, research and analytical skills, and speech communication. The emphasis on communication and entrepreneurship, looking beyond employment and preparing students to become business owners, indicates new opportunities for expansion and more innovation in the field of communication. Emphasis on ethics and cross-cultural communication is a reflection of common values in the ASEAN region, including the recognition of moral duty and respect for cultural diversity. That winds up my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we please give a virtual clap to all our presenters? At this juncture, we will proceed now with the open forum. And may I please request all the presenters to kindly turn on your video. The question is for any one of you. Should MIL competencies of a country or a community be aligned with the UNESCO standards, or should these countries or communities develop their own? Who would like to answer that? I repeat, should MIL competencies of a country or a community be aligned with UNESCO standards, or should they be developing their own?
Dr. Gwen?
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Wei.
Okay. Well, of course, as far as UNESCO is concerned, when they develop the curriculum, hello there. Okay, when they developed the curriculum, this is already the revised edition, which came out, I think that was last month, not 2021, the second edition of the MIL curriculum. That was really intended as a model curriculum. All right. And so the different countries may innovate, may come up with their own MIL curriculum, taking into account the experiences of the media organizations as well as the media consumers in their own locality or in their own countries. And at the same time, looking at the media environment where the MIL curriculum will also be pilot tested. So it's basically a model curriculum. So that can be adopted, but we have to make sure that we incorporate local color in it.
Thank you, Dr. Joey. Any other presenter?
Yes, Ma'am Gwyneth.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Mans.
Hi, Ma'am. Ma'am, I believe that the UNESCO framework is more of suggestive than prescriptive. And I'm sure that UNESCO knows about the context of media and information literacy for each country. So I'm sure they are not really prescribing it, but as Dr. Alagaran said, it's supposed to serve as a model, just a model so that we can develop our own. Thank you, Ma'am Gwen.
Thank you, Dr. Mans, for that rejoinder. The next question is addressed to our colleagues from the University of Mindanao. Can you benchmark with the Association of Local Study Centers to develop your own? Perhaps Marco Polo can enhance further your question.
Hi, Dr. Gwen. It's more of a hello, everyone. It's more of a suggestion, actually, because there are local study centers in different parts of the country. Holy Angel has one. Batangas State University has one. And if our colleague from Mindanao, from Surigao, would like to develop their own, they can benchmark with our established local study centers. You can reach out to us. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Sure. Thank you.
Ma'am Ruela, would you like to add up to that?
What is the question? I did not quite understand the question.
It's more of a comment. That,
yes, I said, okay, yes, ma'am, I am willing to partner with any organization in the conservation of our language and at the same time our culture.
Yes, because we noted that yours was also a very interesting study that ought to be shared to other scholars, no? Not limited to the communication scholars, but even our co-specialists in the languages field. Any other questions? Those are the ones I read from the chat box. Any more questions? I'd like to address my question now to was it Julie who first presented? The presenter about the senior citizen because I'm already a dual citizen, and the parking app.
Agree.
Okay. Yeah, can you please turn your video on?
Yeah, I'm here, Dr. Green.
All right, thank you. My question is, when you developed the study, uh, was there a mitigating factor that some senior citizens are not really pretty much into, the Internet of Things, that there was really difficulty getting them used to it? Although I do laud the project, not of this cashless payment through the app. I for one would love to have that in the Philippines, but as it is, we don't have one. Would you care to
We have a
enlighten
lot
us?
of issues in implementing that because even though the government's saying that they wanted to do it like by force, meaning that we don't give you other options, but still the senior citizens is not so happy with it. So they are trying to bring the message to the government saying that they should not neglect the views of the senior citizens. So that's what's happening here right now.
Follow-up question: is there a sizable populace that are already in the senior citizens category in your country that made the
Sorry,
government invest on that?
sorry, I cannot hear you clearly, Dr. Green.
Oh, in terms of your population, do the senior citizens comprise a big chunk of it that the government invested to make life more convenient and easier for them? Are there
Not really, because they were saying that actually they do allow the senior citizens to, even though you don't have an online banking, that is fine. We'll have all these like small counters, or even like, they have those kind of like agents in small shops that they allow the senior citizens to just walk in to purchase the code, and the shopkeepers will be able to actually help you to reload the e-wallet. But yet, still for the senior citizens, that kind of like insecurity feeling is there, because they feel that, what if I have paid, but the amount that I have in my e-wallets has not increased. And the other issues is also they were thinking that, probably because the senior citizens, they don't really have that kind of like informations on how all this technology is working. So for them, it's like, even though I paid, it's all on my handphone, there's no record there. So what if the city council still give a penalty to my car, even though I have paid? So that is their considerations.
Thank you very much, Jing, for the clarification. Any other questions from our participants? Because if there are none, may we request all of you to please turn on your video cam, and we will request our technical support group from AMIC to kindly take our pictures. Thank you. For posterity reasons, of course. And at that juncture, I'd like to thank all the participants, more importantly, all the presenters for your hardworking work on your respective researches. If you wish to connect with any of our presenters, just contact AMIC Secretariat and they'll link you up to the email addresses of anyone in this panel. Okay.
Yes.
Are
Are we all?
you
Our
yes.
video is on.
Yes. We are ready.
Is that audio coming through okay?
Okay. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Smile.
There should be music. Is there music?
Can we make another shot, because some of the participants are turning on their videos. Okay.
Okay.
Smile again. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, try now.
Okay, for the next.
Great, thank you.
So please turn on your video, please. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Smile.
Thank you, Doc Gwen. See you everyone sa plenary
Thank
for
you
the
very
plenary.
much.
Yeah, see you at the
Thank you so much,
plenary.
everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you so much,
Have a
everyone.
good
Stay
one.
Thank
safe.
you. Thanks, everyone.
Nice meeting
Thank you, everyone.
everyone.
Have a nice
Evelyn.
weekend, everyone.
Sir Joey.
Hi there. Hello.
Sir Marco, ingat.